It's a little bit difficult for me because in a way it's a sort of self-outing to some extent. I'm just going to share some thoughts with everybody on Jewish historiography, which technically is the methods of doing historical research on Jews. Okay, so historiography wants to look at the ways that people conduct their research on Jewish history. And so I say familiar thoughts of 6 problems of researching American Jewish past in lieu of race, because my family narrative, as you're going to see, is kind of undergirding this presentation. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say I feel like I'm a little bit self-out. Okay, so we're going to go through 6 problems. This is the first problem. The historians believe that mixtures, racial, gender, ethnic, etc., inherently comprise marginal, not basic, features of an American Jewish historicity. You have to begin, if you want to do research in Jewish historiography, with the assumption that people, all people, are inherently mixed. You have to begin with that assumption, because if you don't, you end up with some fundamental problems that we're going to explore. Now, here's a picture of me. You know what? Is it possible to I mean, I know I'm dark, but all right, that's a little bit better. Thank you very much. Okay, here's me, right? And I appear in public in certain ways, right? However, this is a photograph of my immediate family during Thanksgiving. So instantaneously, you should be able to see that there's a little bit of dissonance between how I might appear in public in terms of race, how other people might think of me in terms of race, and how I think of myself in terms of race, right? And so this is a part of my family heritage. It's something that we cherish. Here's a photograph of my wedding. I was married 3 years and 4 months ago. And you know, you can see we're all having a wonderful time. However, mixtures, while basic, often imply some sort of tension and conflict in history. Now, the good thing about historiography is that it can help uncover important features of these mixtures and conflicts as they relate to Jewish existence. But as we can see here, inasmuch as it predetermines social roles of whiteness for Jews and blackness for Africans and other people designated as property, slavery had a profound historic impact on American Jewry's negotiations of racial assignment. And here you see the advertisement by J.F. Moses, a Jewish person who's involved in the trafficking of African people. This leads to a second problem. If you don't begin your work as a Jewish historian or a historian of Jews with mixture, if you don't begin your analysis with mixture, then you're unable to acknowledge the influence of historically constituted, racially segregated institutions. If you don't assume that mixture is a part of your analysis, you can't deal with segregation. So usually when historians talk about Jews and slavery, they talk about Jewish plantations as sites of racism, but Jewish plantations have a historical force to them that affect how we behave in the present, including congregations, as I say, yeshivot, Jewish communal organizations. Bertram Korn is a very influential historian in this respect. He played a commanding role in pioneering research on Jews and race in terms of American Jewish historiography. And more recent works of scholars such as Paula Hyman, Ellie Faber, Hasia Diner, Mordecai Arbo, Jonathan Shorsh, and Aviv Ben-Ur have expanded this groundwork. But his ideas on race, and Rabbi Korn was actually a rabbi in Elkins Park here in Philadelphia for a number of years. His ideas on the racial contours of Jewish historiography have remained influential. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a correspondence that took place between Rabbi Korn and some rabbis in the Caribbean back in the late 60s to examine what he means by these contours. Let me give you some background. He was lecturing in New York at the time, and he was lecturing on Jews and slavery, and one of his students raised their hand and said, Rabbi Korn, you know, I know a bunch of people from the Caribbean, and they have some Jewish-sounding last names, but you don't say anything about them. Rabbi Korn couldn't answer the question. So in response to the student's question, what Rabbi Korn did is he sent letters to the rabbis in Panama, Jamaica, Curacao, St. Thomas, to these places in the Caribbean and said, well, tell me about these black people in your congregations. I'm going to read well, we'll get to it. This came from the rabbi in Curacao. He says, "Dear Dr. Korn, to the best of my knowledge, there is no Negro Jew in Suriname and probably in Jamaica, Panama, and St. Thomas. However, excuse me, that's not that. I am, however, not sure of it. I believe there are thousands of mulattoes of Jewish descent who can trace their Jewish ancestors up to 4 and 5 generations back, but there are many today who are the grandsons and even the sons and daughters of Jews. They are usually Catholic, at least nominally, or agnostic. Many of them, no doubt, would probably consider the possibility of joining the Jewish community if it were not for the fact that the Jews of Curacao always excluded them in the past and would probably not mix with them anyway." Now, when the rabbi of Curacao talks about excluding them in the past, he's talking about the fact that during slavery, there were rabbinic decisions made on how to police Jewish communities along lines of race, to the extent that black Jews could not be members of many of these congregations and synagogues. Mulatto Jews had a little bit more opportunity to be participating members, but white Jews, assuming you were male, and especially if you were male and you had some money, could definitely participate in the life of these congregations. Since I converted Yishmael Francisca, I've been asked 3 times to say a prayer at the dedication of a new home of these Antillean Anusim. Anusim is a word the rabbis use to refer to Jews who, for whatever reason, historically, have not been allowed to publicly express their Jewish identity, right? And one of them is studying Hebrew with me. These facts are true to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not afraid to mention them, but the members of my community do not like to hear about them. They would surely prefer to ignore them. I've tried to do my best not to antagonize them with these matters, but I think it would be a great injustice if they were not to be included in the general history of the Jews of the Netherlands, Antilles, etc., etc. Pay attention to Rabbi Korn's response. "I'm grateful to you for your letter of May 14th, but as you may know from my paper on Jews and slavery, there is evidence that there was only one Negro who regarded himself as a Jew, a man who attended services in Charleston. Otherwise, consistently, the Jewish fathers of mulatto children demonstrated no interest in giving them a Jewish education or in rearing them as Jews or identifying them as such." So this is interesting. Rabbi Korn is the one that asked the question. But when he got the response from the rabbi in Curacao, he didn't like the response. So he actually reiterated scholarship that he had already admitted, didn't respond to his original question. But look what happens in the relationship, the discourse between the Jamaican rabbi. He's all proud. He says, "In reply to your inquiry, I would inform you that there are a few Negro and mulatto members in my congregation. To give some examples,